Does that create an opening or renew the president's desire to reimpose sanctions as part of the Iran nuclear deal? And I have a follow-up on Pakistan.
Look, we certainly keep our options open in terms of sanctions, in terms of signing a waiver later in January. The president hasn't made a final decision on that. He's going to keep all of his options on the table in that regard.
Has the Iranian protests changed the calculations about that? Meaning created a situation in which the president, who was already inclined to be moving in that direction, would move more rapidly in that direction to send a signal not just to the Iranian regime but to the world?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think the president's been very clear what his position is in support of the Iranian people, and in terms of what decision he'll make on that waiver. He hasn't made a final one yet, but he's going to keep every option on the table with regard to that.
And on Pakistan, what precipitated the president's tweet about threatening to withhold future U.S. aid? Is there something in particular that he was either briefed upon or that he noticed? Because it's not necessarily a secret that there's been a long-running dispute between the United States government and Pakistan about how cooperative Pakistan has been in counterterrorism measures and other issues.
Look, the president outlined a new strategy for Afghanistan and South Asia earlier this past year in August, and at that time he laid out and said that Pakistan is not fulfilling its obligations. The president is simply following through on a commitment that he made, because this is a president who does what he says he's going to do. We know that Pakistan can do more to fight terrorism, and we want them to step up and do that.
Celia, Happy New Year. What did the president mean when he said the deep state Justice Department? And does this administration believe that the deep state is a real thing, that there is this shadow government out there actively plotting to sabotage him?
Look, the president finds some of those actions very disturbing, and he thinks that we need to make sure if there is an issue that it's looked at. But if there was anything beyond that, I would refer you to the Department of Justice that would look into it.
Does he believe the entire Justice Department and its more than 100,000 employees are part of this deep state?
Obviously, he doesn't believe the entire Justice Department is part of that. You know, one of the things that the president has done is appoint Christopher Wray at the FBI, because he wants to change the culture of that agency, and he thinks he's the right person to do that. Steve?
What does the president see as the end game in Iran? Would he like to see regime change?
I mean, I think the ultimate end game would be that the citizens and the people of Iran are actually given basic human rights, and he'd certainly like to see them stop being a state sponsor of terror. I think that's something the whole world would like to see.
Follow up, is there a risk of, by encouraging these demonstrators, that there could be a backlash against them from the Iranian government?
No, and you know, I think one of the big things, and I think even Hillary Clinton outlined this when she said that the Obama administration was too restrained of the 2009 protests, and said that won't happen again. And for once, she's right, and we agree with her, because President Trump's not going to sit by silently like President Obama did, and he certainly supports the Iranian people and wants to make that clear. Matthew?
Thanks, Sarah. Another question on one of this morning's tweets. Is the president requesting that the Department of Justice investigate Huma Abedin? And how did he reach his conclusion that she should be in jail, given that she hasn't been indicted or convicted of any crime?
Look, obviously the facts of that case are very disturbing, and I think the president wants to make clear that he doesn't feel that anyone should be above the law. In terms of any investigation, that would be something the Department of Justice would need to decide, and I would refer you to them on whether or not they move forward. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. Was the president disappointed that Senator Hatch decided not to seek re-election, and is he committed to campaign for whoever the Republican nominee would be in 2018?
Obviously, I don't think we've made a determination in terms of campaigning, but the president certainly has the greatest and deepest amount of respect for Senator Hatch and his over 4 decades of experience in the Senate. He's particularly thankful for the senator's leadership and massive effort that he played and the role that he played in getting the tax cut and reform package passed. And the president certainly praises his service and is very sad to see Senator Hatch leave, and knows that he will certainly be missed. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. President Moon of South Korea has reached out to North Korea about a possible meeting between North and South Korean officials as early as next week. Is this a meeting that the administration supports? Would it in any way upset your strategy for dealing with North Korea?
Look, our policy on North Korea hasn't changed at all. The United States is committed and will still continue to put maximum pressure on North Korea to change and make sure that it denuclearizes the peninsula. Our goals are the same, and we share that with South Korea, but our policy and our process has not changed in this. Trey?
Would such a meeting be helpful, Sarah?
Sorry, go ahead, John. I'll come back to you.
Would such a meeting be helpful, though, in terms of diffusing the situation that exists now in the region?
Again, our policy hasn't changed, and we've been very clear about the fact of what our priority is, and that's a denuclearized peninsula, and there's nothing new to update on that front. Trey?
Thanks, Sarah. Too on Iran. The president tweeted over the past weekend that the U.S. is watching very closely for human rights violations. What actions are being considered by the Trump administration should these violations occur?
Look, we'll keep you posted on any actions that we plan to take, and we're keeping a lot of options on the table at this time.
And if I can follow up on Steve's question about regime change, there are protesters who are calling for regime change in the country. Does the Trump administration support regime change in Iran?
We support them giving basic rights to the people of Iran, and we support them stopping being a state sponsor of terror, and we want to see those actions take place. Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. Today, Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, said that the aid cut for Pakistan was not tied to the United Nations vote on Jerusalem. But what is happening to the countries that did not vote with the United States? Both Ambassador Haley and President Trump made threats against those countries. And I also wanted to ask you about what the president's schedule is today for the rest of the week and what he's been up to lately. We know that he had a lunch today. We know that he had his intelligence briefing, and clearly we saw him tweeting. What else is on the president's agenda?
That's a lot of questions from a lot of different angles. I'm going to try to make sure I cover them all. First, in terms of Pakistan, as I said, our goal is that we know that they can do more to stop terrorism, and we want them to do that. That seems pretty simple. In terms of specific actions, I think you'll see some more details come out on that in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on that front. In terms of the president's schedule, he's had a number of meetings today. We'll keep you guys posted on that. He met with the vice president, Secretary of Labor, and a number of staff members talking about goals and priorities as we move into the new year, and we're excited about having as a successful 2018 as we did 2017. Ashley.
Sarah, this morning the president tweeted that Hispanics and DACA activists will soon be falling in love with him and Republicans. So what protections is the president, if any, prepared to provide to Dreamers, and would any protections for Dreamers have to be tied to a tangible physical wall at the border?
Look, the president wants to have responsible immigration reform. He said before that he would like to include a DACA resolution in that process, and we hope to be able to work with members of Congress to get that done, and that's certainly a big priority for the administration in 2018.
Any specifics?
We've laid out what our principles on immigration reform look like, and that would need to be part of any package that includes DACA. Sure.
There are folks on Capitol Hill that are under the impression that the White House is going to provide another document, a smaller list, more narrow list of policy proposals it's looking for in exchange for protections for Dreamers. So they're expecting some other kind of document. Is that coming, and is that something they're going to talk about tomorrow?
We'll certainly keep you posted if it does. Right now, we're still focused on helping achieve those principles that we laid out at the end of last year, and we want to continue to work with Congress to get those done.
Okay,
Steve,
can I ask
sure.
one last quick question? There are a couple people,
I'm in a good mood today, and we haven't been here a long time. So.
there are at least a couple of folks that were nominated last year that did not get confirmed by the Senate. Will the White House renominate them, or are you looking for other people?
I don't have any personal announcements on that front, but we'll keep you posted. Stephen.
I want to go back to North Korea for just a second. The president, in one of his tweets this morning, said that sanctions and other pressures are having a big impact on North Korea. But we learned this afternoon that Kim Jong-un is apparently making preparations for another missile launch, either this week or next. There was the rhetoric over the weekend about a nuclear button on his desk. Can you point out how these pressures are having a big impact, as the president says? And I know a lot of people want to know, if we stay on the current course of maximum pressure, are we moving further from war or closer to the brink?
Again, the focus here is to continue, like you said, to apply maximum pressure on North Korea, and we want all of the other countries. This is not just a United States threat, this is a global threat, which is why we're calling on everybody to step up and do more, and we're going to continue working with a lot of different leaders in other countries to help do that, and we're going to keep all of our options on the table. As we have said time and time again, our policy on that front hasn't changed. Mike?
Just to follow up on that point, if the policy is denuclearization and Kim won't talk to the U.S. about that, how can it be good news, as the president suggested in his tweet, that North Korea wants to talk to South Korea about the Olympics?
How can it, I'm sorry, what was the last one?
It may be good news that North Korea wants to talk to South Korea about the Olympics.
Look,
in what scenario is that good news for the White House?
Look, our alliance and friendship with South Korea remains stronger than it ever has been, and we're in close contact with those people about a unified